Hello everyone, welcome to the Crystaly Recapped channel. And now you will hear a short review of the movie where the Crawdads sing. If you like our videos, you can support us by liking and subscribing. North Carolina, October 30th, 1969. The boys, driving through a swampy area, noticed the body of a young man lying nearby. Police soon arrived, examined the body, and identified it as Chase Andrews. There are no traces of either the perpetrator or the victim around, which causes the sheriff to be confused. His assistant notices a tower and assumes that Chase fell from it, as young people often climb it to enjoy the beauty of the surrounding nature. At the top, the sheriff notices that one of the floor sections is missing and that the boy really fell through it. After examining the body, the doctor confirms that Chase fell from the tower between midnight and 2 in the morning, but hit the back of his head on the edge of the tower. Thus, he fell backwards, which is only possible if someone pushed him. There are no fingerprints or other traces on the tower. The only thing that was found were red woolen threads. Chase was not wearing similar clothes, which means that the alleged killer could have left him behind. The cops are baffled and don't know who to suspect. Meanwhile, everyone in the bar is discussing the situation and is not shy about expressing their assumptions. Most believe that the killer is the swamp girl, who lives in a remote swampy area not far from the city. The sheriff decides to check people's assumptions and visits the home of Kaya, whose full name is Catherine Clark. His deputy notices a red woolen hat, and they decide to catch the girl. Kaya tries to escape but is arrested and sent to prison. Here the girl is visited by Tom Milton, the only person who believes in her innocence and is ready to defend her in court. Before he can help, Kaya has to tell him everything about herself, starting with her childhood. 1953. Kaya is a small, gentle, and intelligent girl who loves nature. She spends all her time with her brothers, sisters, and mother, who teach her to draw. They also live with an abusive father who suffers from alcohol addiction. He does not hesitate to raise his hand against his children and his wife, constantly intimidating them and keeping them in fear. Tate, the older brother's friend, tried to stand up for the child, but it didn't change anything. After a nightly argument, the mother broke down and left, packing all her belongings. Shortly after that, the older brother left, and 3 months later, Kaya's sisters left home. Jody was the last to leave home, and he offered to run away with her. The girl was afraid that her father would become even worse than before, and she decided to stay with him. Trying to be an obedient daughter, Kaya did not attract her father's attention and tried not to anger him, doing everything quietly and submissively. One day she got lost, but Tate helped the girl get home. Trying to be a little kinder, the man took the girl with him to the city to buy food and refuel the boat. At the same time, the father teaches his daughter not to trust anyone because people are worse and more dangerous than animals. The owners of the shop, Jumpin' and Mabel, turned out to be surprisingly kind and sympathetic people. A sympathetic woman realized that the girl could not count and even treated her to candy to gain Kaya's trust. The little girl also listened to the advice to go to school, because a dress is enough and shoes are not necessary. Dreaming of learning to read and write, Kaya found an old dress of one of her sisters. Many people treated her as an outcast and began to avoid the dirty girl in rags. During the first lesson, everyone laughed at the new girl and she ran away. From that day on, the girl never returned to school. Despite the cruelty and rudeness, the father tried to be kinder and gave his daughter an old army backpack. The girl did not have time to thank him because she heard the postman and ran to him. Kaya received a letter from her mother, but she could not read it and gave the envelope to her father. Without any explanation, he burned the letter and became very angry because of what his wife, who had left him, had written. The girl was so hurt and upset that she collected the ashes from the burned letter and kept them in a jar. That same night, the father destroyed all her mother's belongings and then left, leaving his daughter alone. This was a real blow to her, because it was at that moment that Kaya realized that no one else needed her and she could only rely on herself. The next morning, the girl collected mussels in the water and arranged a supply with the shop owner. Soon she started earning money, and Mabel helped Kaya by giving her shoes and clothes from the church. Now the shopkeeper is also kind to the girl and has given her a dress again, but this time for the trial. Tom is sure that the jury will be prejudiced against the swamp girl and will try to sentence her to life imprisonment or the death penalty. The only way to avoid this is to make a sincere confession and get 10 years in prison. Kaya is not going to confess to killing Chase, and her lawyer realizes this and decides to defend her in court. At the hearing, the prosecutor uses only assumptions and guesses, so Tom urges everyone to be guided by the facts, not emotions or prejudices. In 1962, while walking near her home, Kaja noticed a strange man and was frightened. Soon it turned out that it was Tate, and he decided to court her. The girl could not read, so she could not appreciate all the gifts. The boy offered his help and quickly taught Kaja not only to read, but also to write. The girl is fond of nature, so she spent most of her time reading biology books, learning about the world not only physically, but also from the point of view of science. The social worker found out that the girl lived alone, and her parents had long since left home. After discussing this with the shop owners, the man asked them to let him know as soon as they met Kaja. The concerned Jumpin and Mabel told the girl about it so that she would be more careful. From the next date, Kaja began to cover her tracks and spend time with Tate in nature to avoid being seen by the social worker. The first romantic date ended with a kiss and grew into something more. After a while, the couple decided to celebrate Kaja's birthday at the lake. Seeing the swans arrive, the boyfriend and girlfriend were delighted. Deciding to make the day more memorable, they almost made love. At the last moment, Tate stopped, afraid to hurt the girl, because she was too important to him and he didn't want to rush. Time passed, and Tate was ready to leave because he was going to go to university. Before he left his hometown, he spent the night with his beloved and left her a list of publishing houses where she could send her drawings to earn some money. Kaja was afraid that she would lose her boyfriend forever, but he promised to return on July 4th. While waiting for that day, she used lipstick for the first time to impress her lover. Running to the coast, she waited for more than a day, but Tate never showed up. Disappointed, she burned the last of her drawings and decided to start a new chapter in her life. Meanwhile, in the courtroom, witnesses are being interviewed who might testify against Kaja. First, the prosecutor talks to the sheriff and draws attention to the fact that red woolen threads were found on Chase's clothes. The lawyer objects, because they could have gotten on the clothes not only at the time of the murder, but also a few days before. In addition, a year ago, the sheriff appealed to the state authorities to close the tower and repair the grate. Even then, the police officer assumed that such negligence could end badly, and that is what led to the death. 1968. Kaja forgot Tate and opened her heart to fall in love with a young and charming guy named Chase. When she returns home, she notices a strange man with a camera and rushes to the store owners for help. It turned out that the businessman was draining the swamp to build hotels, and her house could be of great value to him. If the girl proves that the land belongs to her, he can pay good money for it. You can prove your ownership by paying off your debts of $1,800. Kaja doesn't have that kind of money, but she remembers the lists of publishers Tate left her and sends some drawings to one of them. Later, she goes on a date with Chase and finds a unique shell. The couple kisses, but the guy is too persistent, and Kaja pushes him away because she is not a simple girl. Chase decides to prove that his feelings are serious and takes the girl to the tower where he likes to spend time when he is sad and lonely. Soon, Kaja's heart fluttered and the couple started dating. After a while, the publisher wrote back to her and agreed to publish the book with Kaja's help. Chase has to go away for a few days and invites her to go with him to another city. Kaja is used to living alone with nature and is afraid of a large number of people, but she agrees to go anyway. The couple retires to a hotel and makes love. Having made a pendant from a shell on a leather strap, she gives it to Chase as a symbol of her love for him. It is then, in the courtroom, that Chase's mother remembers this pendant and believes that Kaja killed her son to get him back. Tom argues that the sheriff and his men have searched the area but have not found the missing item. He asks the woman to calm down, because all the accusations against Kaja are speculations without any evidence. Tate returned to the city and saw that his girlfriend was dating another man. He overheard Chase talking about her in a conversation with a friend, and it made him angry. In the evening, Tate came to Kaja's house to apologize and explain everything. He was afraid that he would have to choose between her and the future, but he realized that he could not live without her and returned to his hometown. Tate is also passionate about biology and nature study, so he will stay here forever. Despite his declaration of love, Kaja rejected him. The next morning, she found out that Chase was getting married to another girl, and they were serious. Kaja realized that the womanizer had been using her and lying to her all along, so she ran home. Soon Chase came to her and the girl had to hide, avoiding the meeting. At that moment, she realized that it was better to be alone. A few days later, Kaja received an honorarium for her book. The money was enough to pay off her debts and renovate the interior of her house to make working and living there more comfortable. One day she noticed a man on her doorstep. She could not imagine that this is her brother Jody, who ran away many years ago. Their mother died of an illness, and he does not know the fate of his older sisters, brother and father. Chase meets Kaya and tries to talk to her. He behaves boldly and tries to take advantage of the defenseless girl. Grabbing the first thing that came to hand, Kaya hit Chase on the head and promised to kill him if he came near her again. This was witnessed by Fisherman, who is now testifying in court and talking about this quarrel. A few hours later, when Kaya returned home, she saw that Chase had vandalized her house. In the evening, she expected another attack, but Tate came to her house and decided to support her. The next morning, she received an invitation from the publisher, and on October 29, 1969, she left for another city. The girl left the day before Chase's death, and there are witnesses who confirm this. The prosecutor is sure that Kaya returned at night, and after the boyfriend's murder, she went back to the city to the publisher, but no one can confirm this. Tom rejects the other assumption because the girl was on the bus twice, and it's strange that no one noticed her. In addition, she only had an hour, and it is unlikely that she could have done everything, given the late hour and the darkness of the day. The jury has heard all the parties and asks everyone to leave the room to reach a decision. After 6 hours, the defense and prosecution reconvene in court to hear the verdict. The judge and jury unanimously found Kaya not guilty of Chase's death and apologized for the time lost. From that day on, the girl's life became happy because she spent it with Tate. Having lived to a ripe old age, she died peacefully and went to meet her mother. Going through the woman's old things, Tate leafs through one of the books and finds Chase's pendant. Realizing that Kaya killed him, he throws the shell into the water. This is the end of the movie. That's all for today. Subscribe and like if you want more videos like this.